You can take your mask down for this if you want so people can understand you. Or you can leave it on if you feel more comfortable. We might be able to hear you.
It's so much fun wearing this mask.
Okay, good. We can hear you okay. Good.
And lots of money.
Welcome everyone. Thanks so much for being with us here today. Happy Earth Day. Happy 50th anniversary of Earth Day, starting in 1970. I'm so grateful that Gil agreed to join me to just talk about Earth Day and how we can celebrate it, and to hear a little bit about his background related to Earth Day. Gil's very involved with the environment, has been pretty much his whole life, as we will learn. And so thanks, Gil, for joining us. We're really appreciative that you agreed to be here. You have been at the Catholic home for 5 or 6 years? Or how long have you been?
5 years, I think.
5 years, yeah. So, Gil Walter, everybody, and when Gil and I got together to talk about this, he had mentioned that really early on in his childhood, his father had an influence on on the inception of his being interested and drawn to everything environmental, everything about the earth, taking care of Mother Earth. And so maybe you can talk a little bit about your father's influence on that. I'm going to join Gil and put my mask back up too, so you can hear me.
Okay, when I was a child, we lived in a little town called Upper Illinois on the banks of the Illinois River. And a lot of woods around there that were a natural place for a child to play. At any rate, this was during the Depression, and my father would go hunting there frequently and would forage for various types of wild fruit. And so he took me along, and we went around exploring these wooded areas. I didn't much care for the hunting at the time, but I liked the idea of going out there. Then, fortunately, one of our neighbors gave me a Boy Scout handbook. It's what contained a wealth of knowledge that that enabled me to identify a lot of the vegetation close to the Illinois River there. And one thing I was always looking for, though, was poison ivy. I warned repeatedly, watch out for the poison ivy. But I never could find any poison ivy.
Did you ever get poison ivy? I hope not.
I never got poison ivy. I never found any. There wasn't any poison ivy.
Oh, okay.
Around that area. So then, at any rate, we eventually moved to a larger city called Chicago. Well, not Chicago, but suburbs. And there again, I had a very similar environment. We were next to the Des Plaines River in the western suburbs. And Cook County has nature reserves.
Keep it so they can hear you. There you go.
Cook County has a lot of natural areas right along the river, so I used to enjoy that very much. But I couldn't go hunting there because it was parkland. And then when I was about 16 years old, I started hunting, going after rabbits. Once I brought home 6 rabbits, and I was so proud. And then my mother said, "You didn't clean them yet." That's when I got a little tired of hunting.
Yeah, when it came time to clean. And would you use those for your rabbit stew and so forth? Yeah. So, yeah.
At any rate,
so living along the river, your environment, your natural surroundings really drew you into being curious with the environment and just exploring, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's natural for kids to get out and kind of just explore, try to figure out what's there. Are there any secrets? We're looking for things that were very mysterious.
Right.
I didn't find any, but
Yeah.
Anyway, then I eventually moved to this pristine place in the north called Wisconsin. From the south, Wisconsin had kind of a magical quality about it. And it's pure and clean and full of woods and streams and deer, vamping around.
Yeah. We do have such beauty. I feel like it's taken for granted sometimes. Would you agree? The beauty that exists here in Wisconsin?
It's taken for granted, yes.
Yeah.
It was never as beautiful as the image that I had of it from Illinois. But then I got a job in Milwaukee on the east side here, and I got a place to stay that was close to the river.
Right.
And I looked down to the river, and it was very much like the Plains River in Chicago, which was a great disappointment to me, because I thought there would be fish, and you could swim in the river, and it had all kinds of natural things in it that I would like. But it had the same sludge, green, algae on the surface.
So what year was this about?
This was in the 1960.
Okay, sure.
1960.
Yeah, yeah.
And then around, well, it was 1970.
Right, 1970, first Earth Day, 1970, which you remember very well.
I came along Earth Day, yes. And at that time, the country was in upheaval. It was during the Vietnam War.
Right.
A lot of the students at the universities were demonstrating against the war, and they were holding teach-ins mainly against the war. But these teach-ins about taking like celebrations or demonstrations against the war. But then
one of the teach-ins was related to the environment, I believe?
Most of the teach-ins were not related to the environment. That was the inspiration of Gil Earth.
Ah, got it, yep.
He decided that he would try to kind of change the direction because there were many environmental problems. The air was polluted, water was polluted. We had all kinds of problems with insects and insecticides.
Right, right.
I don't know if you remember this. Most of you probably do, but helicopters used to come over shoreline spraying DDT.
Oh my gosh. I've seen pictures of it.
To try to kill the elm bark beetles.
Oh my
that
gosh.
cause elm disease.
Gosh, to think about that. That's scary. Yeah.
And probably poisoned the generation with DDT.
Yeah.
And the cars would spew lots of hydrocarbons because they didn't have catalytic converters yet. Was there.
Yeah.
All kinds of environmental problems that nobody really paid much attention to because they were all focused on
the war, yeah.
And in fact, in Vietnam, there was a huge environmental problem because the U.S. sprayed Agent Orange, which is 2,4-D, on all the crops around there and the hillsides to try to defoliate the trees. This came to haunt us later.
Right, right. A lot of long-term impact from that. So you had mentioned about the first Earth Day and what that celebration looked like. I think on the west side of Milwaukee, it started out very slowly.
Well, unfortunately, I wasn't in town for the first Earth Day, but the second Earth Day.
The next one, yeah.
Yeah, I remember going to it at a park on the west side of Milwaukee. I remember riding my bicycle there, but I can't remember which park it was. It's a very small park, and they had the usual speeches, and they had a band playing, and people going around passing out leaflets, and one thing that the group was passing out was little white spruce trees, little evergreens about this big. And my 3 children who were there with me each got a little spruce tree, which we planted in our backyard. And they soon became mighty spruces.
Yeah.
They were like 10 or 15 feet tall.
Wow. Wow.
And of course, when I sold the house, the next owner cut them down.
Oh, that's frustrating, but
Yeah, right.
wow, what a great memory. That's so neat that they, that's just a special memory. Neat that they did that, gave those out to everybody to kind of really promote working with the earth, planting the trees. Absolutely.
In particular, planting native trees, which white spruce are. In fact, we have white spruce right here surrounding our courtyard.
Right.
Well, what happened next?
So then we come to really, I mean, you've been involved in so many different organizations. Maybe if you can talk a little bit about your involvement with the local environmental organizations that you have been involved in and the things that they do to promote a healthy earth.
Well, my first involvement was with Riverside Park. which has evolved into the Urban Ecology Center. At that time, it was just a park. It was completely overgrown. It was mainly a place where people would trade drugs. And later on, it became a de facto dog park. So a group of us tried to bring back Riverside Park by chasing up.
If you can I want people to hear this, because I know people will really relate to this, because this is your community, right? He's talking about Riverside Park. So you can tell, there you go, good.
This was Riverside Park. Before the Urban Ecology Center, we were working to try to restore the natural areas along the river, Riverside Park in particular. And our main focus, after getting rid of a lot of the dogs, not all of them, and drug traders, was to try to get rid of the invasive plants there. And the same invasive plants that we find to this day in many of the parks, principally garlic mustard and buckthorn. Now, the garlic mustard is just coming into bloom right now. So if you want an activity that you find very friendly for the environment,
and exercise,
go out to the parks. Go out to the parks and pull garlic mustard. It's pretty easy to pull. It helps if you have a dandelion digger to pull them out.
And why is it important to get rid of those?
Well, because they replace native plants. Native plants are tuned into the insects that we have, various pollinators, etc. The birds. Invasive plants are not. For example, in most of the parks we have a lot of native plants and buckthorn. The deer eat the native plants but eat the buckthorn alone.
So they kind of take over space and...
Do take over. They take over many of our parks.
Yeah.
In Lake Park, we're pretty fortunate to get rid of about half of the garlic mustard and a lot of the buckthorn. It's a slow process.
Yeah, it just comes back, right, year after year, and you've been in the leadership position at the Friends of Lake Park, and been involved in that for many years. I think you were one of the founding member, or?
Oh no, I was one of the founding.
Oh, okay.
At that time, I was involved in Riverside Park.
Okay.
Then about year 2000, a little bit before that, I came to Lake Park to participate in the so-called weed out, which was working on getting rid of garlic mustard in the park, and gradually became more involved, and eventually became part of the board, and then chair of the nature committee, which I continued until last year, as a matter of fact. And currently I'm organizer of a green work group on Wednesdays, which tries to do things that are important for the park. In fact, we constructed a butterfly garden, several rain gardens. We've been instrumental in getting rid of lots of buckthorn and garlic mustard, and have planted a number of native species to replace the things that we took out.
That's fantastic. Talk a little bit about the rain garden. You mentioned that yesterday. I thought that was, and the butterfly pollinator gardens.
Okay. Now, native plants are very important. Native flowering plants are very important to maintain a pollinator. Pollinators.
The bees and the hummingbirds and
bees, hummingbirds, butterflies, moths, and lots of other insects. Some of them are just fitted to take pollen from a particular species of flower. So they thrive on native plants. It's a good idea to plant lots of native flowering plants.
Sure.
To restore the pollinator population. Pollinator or the pollen, insect population is going way down due to the use of pesticides in the environment, and it's affecting some of the plants that we use.
Yeah.
So it's a good idea to try to plant native plants as much as possible. Now,
and not use pesticides, obviously.
Yeah. No. The Catholic home here has been very good as far as native plants are concerned. A lot of our trees in the courtyard are native trees. There's some native forbs, flowering plants.
Yeah.
There's Baptisia, pretty blue plant. There's Joe Highway, which is one of the best for pollinators. So both of these are very important. And
good. You thought we'd do well to maybe have a rain garden though also instead of so much grass.
yes. Swampy area in the park.
Right.
That could be converted into a rain garden.
Okay, yeah. He's saying you can't hear you. So talk closer into the mic, maybe into even the top of it. There you go. Good.
Okay, rain.
There we go.
A rain garden is a garden composed of plants that can survive and can do very well in swampy areas with plants with wet feet.
Wet feet.
Now there's a couple of swampy areas adjacent to our building here that could be used to construct a rain garden. Rain gardens are generally flowering plants. If you want to find out what they look like, you can walk through Lake Park and you'll see several rain gardens if you walk along the lake itself. And they're pretty easy to construct. I personally constructed a couple of them, both in Lake Park and in Estabrook Park. Not too much work, but it costs a little money. Another thing we can do is avoid use of herbicides and insecticides wherever possible. I know mosquitoes and flies are pesky during the summer, but mosquitoes are eaten by lots of birds, and so are flies. So they serve a very important part of the environment.
Right. Part of the ecosystem, absolutely. Yeah. You talked a little, so there's the Friends group. Many parks have friends of groups to be involved in.
Almost every larger park in Milwaukee County has a Friends group that's devoted to the park itself.
Right.
And does the same kind of things that we do in Lake Park.
Yeah.
In Lake Park, I shouldn't say this, we have more money than the others. So we can do lots of things that they can't do.
And it's all pretty much groundswell of support, local people just chipping in and doing what they can.
Almost entirely local people chipping in.
Right.
There's a group in Estabrook Park, there's a group in Doctors Park, there's another group in Clutch Park, all of which are dedicated to trying to improve the environment.
Sure.
So it's, I think, an important activity as far as the environment is concerned.
Right. And of course we have the Urban Ecology Center right here in our neighborhood. There's a couple campuses of the Urban Ecology Center, but I know you've said that's just a fantastic resource that we have.
Yes, Urban Ecology Center is great for a number of reasons. They try to restore the environment as much as possible. In fact, they have so much money, they just are planting trees all along the Milwaukee River. And I'm always jealous of the number of trees that they could plant in there. These are native trees that they're planting. They have 3 branches now, one in Washington Park, which is doing quite well. Washington Park was, as was Lake Park, an Olmsted Park, designed by Freddie Olmsted. So they're taking advantage of that and trying to restore a lot of the native things in there.
You mentioned, how many trees did you plant last year? I think I was just amazed at that number.
Well,
in Lake Park, just in Lake Park.
In Lake Park, we planted, depends what kind of trees you want. If you're talking about big trees, those that are like 2 or 3 inches in diameter, we didn't plant too many of those. We planted about, I think, order of 30 trees, big trees.
Yeah.
And we planted lots of seedlings.
Yes.
Around the park. In fact, we planted some in Lake Park 10 or 12 years ago that have matured and from seedlings that have grown into big trees.
Yeah.
These are mostly oak trees, mostly red oaks. In fact, all red oaks. So we have lots of red oaks in Lake Park now.
I just think it's interesting and inspiring to hear that it's these friends group that are really keeping these parks healthy, alive, dynamic, active. I mean, I know we get support from the county certainly, but it's just, that's a great place if you want to get involved, I know last year Gil and Mary Gores kind of spearheaded a little park cleanup and actual tour also of Lake Park, where we all went over to the park and picked up all the garbage, which is something that everybody can still do. Even though we're in this kind of unprecedented, crazy time, you're still out going for a walk, pick up garbage, yeah.
Especially now, the east side,
right.
Probably all over town, is inundated with garbage.
Garbage.
I've been hesitant about picking it up because I'm afraid of the
virus. Sure, good point to talk about. Yeah.
But I think if you have gloves on, these
right.
rubber gloves, you can pick the garbage.
Right. That's a really good point. Actually, only if you'd have gloves, and a mask as well to be doing that sort of thing. Probably not the best thing to be doing now. We can wait for that, but other ways that we talked about to help the environment.
You can try to use public transportation instead of your car.
There you go.
Or else walk or bicycle to your destinations.
Yep.
Because cars are polluting in a number of different ways. They use up space in parking lots. You think of Milwaukee downtown, half of it is parking lots. That could be green space. And they're not as polluting as they used to be, but still they pollute the environment a little bit. And it's healthier to walk.
Right. It's kind of a win-win situation.
Right.
Less of a carbon footprint, more exercise for you, that sort of thing.
Oh, what else can we do?
What else can we do?
About? Well, we can try to learn to love dandelions.
I love this. Yeah.
Because on the east side here, if you look at any of the yards, they're pristine looking green. But these yards are dead. All they have is grass. They don't have any insects in the yards. They don't have any other weeds growing up in the grass. There's nothing for the birds to chew on. Whereas if you go over to Lake Park or any of the parks, you find that the lawns are grass, but they're also things like dandelions and clover. And they look perfectly good all year round. In the spring, there's a bloom of dandelions, which some people dislike, but I enjoy very much. So I think one thing we can do is learn to love dandelions and hate the pesticides that we have to put on our lawns to kill them.
That's a great point. I think a good visual for that is, I'm sure all of you have either been this person, been the recipient of this person, or have the vision of the little the child bringing home the handful of dandelions to his mother or father, and that's just such a great image to keep in mind of the life of that. That those are important, and they're pretty. I think they're pretty yellow, and they just are important to the health of the environment. And
yeah, they're actually the sunflower family, so they're not native, but they're like natives. But they only grow in grass. You don't find, they're not invasive at all. You don't find them in the woods or natural areas.
That's true. Yeah.
So they're kind of co-evolved with grass.
And it means that there's not herbicides or pesticides being used, and it makes me feel good because we have dandelions in our lawn, as we've been trying to be eco-friendly on our lawn for several years, and we definitely have the clover. I can attest to that, and I just keep saying it's green. You can't really even tell unless you're up close. So, and it's healthy and natural and normal for the lawn.
In fact, they could even eat the dandelion greens.
Oh, yes.
They used to sell them at Sendings. I don't know if they still do.
Yeah.
But you can go out to the parks and springtime before they bloom and dig some up and have the greens. They're not bad.
Yeah.
In fact, I used to do that. I had the same experience that you did.
I never put any herbicide or insecticide in my yard, and it was green most of the time. One of my neighbors kept offering to spray my yard for me because he didn't like my dandelions.
Sure.
But I told him I didn't. I liked them.
Right, yeah. Okay, so other things we can do, present time for Earth Day. I've read a lot recently about just being very mindful about consumerism and how much you consume
Yes.
with everything, because that all takes energy. So.
Yes. In particular, since the first Earth Day, our consumption has changed considerably. At that time, we were mainly using glass and metal containers. I remember I used to get my beer in returnable bottles, which you can't do anymore. Now we have plastics. Now, some of the plastics are recyclable, but most are not.
Yeah.
And we have lots of other things that go into the garbage, go into landfills, that are really not necessary to use.
Right.
The packaging material in a lot of things at the grocery store is not recyclable. Right? For example, the containers that we see for lettuce and greens, it looks so nice, they're not recyclable. Fortunately, I have a son who works in the recycling industry, so I learned a little bit about that.
Yeah, yes. I know, I was surprised when we had our little tutorial here on recycling of the many things that are not recyclable that we think are, and so consuming, just being mindful as a consumer in regards to minimizing plastics, and also just general consumption. I guess I think also of buying local and why that's important.
Oh, yes. It's going to lower the carbon footprint if you buy local, because if you buy things that are shipped from California, you have to pay for the transportation from California, and it's by air, so it's pretty expensive.
Exactly.
In the sense of the environment, probably not in dollars, but environmentally, it's got a large cost.
Right.
So if you buy local, that's a good thing. Buy local, buy glass, buy bulk. You can buy oranges or apples or whatever you're going to use in bulk.
Right.
Such that they're not prepackaged. That will help a little bit.
Right. I've also heard that actually fashion and clothing is one of the largest carbon footprints because of all the production of clothing and then the shipping and that sort of thing. So recycling, buying secondhand. So many of the companies, I know Patagonia does this, they really encourage you to send your item back and they'll fix it for you, and now there's some energy exchange there, but just, I think an overall broad mindfulness of, there's so many things you can do, it can be overwhelming, but if we all do a little bit, it's helpful.
I remember that when my daughter was in college, she bought all her clothes at Goodwill. And,
yes.
Well, some of them were not very fashionable.
Fashion, but economical and environmentally eco-friendly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I haven't gone there very much recently.
Right.
But nonetheless, you can get a lot of fairly decent stuff at Goodwill or Salvation Army. Or,
right, and there's secondhand stores where people, consignment type situations where you can bring your clothes and recycle that way. And then we talked a little bit about a plant-based diet and how that's helpful to the environment.
Certainly. To raise cattle or hogs really requires a lot of carbohydrates, hydrocarbons. You need a lot of input from the environment. You have to you transport the feed. You have to pay for keeping the cattle or hogs healthy with usually it's medicines of one kind or another. Penicillin is used extensively, which resulted in our And chickens, on the other hand, are another matter. Chickens don't have as large a carbon footprint as red meats. So if you're a confirmed meat eater, you can have a lot of chicken, and it looks like the Catholic health is very good that way.
Yes. And even if you are red, just cut back. Maybe just try to cut back. And I've heard try to make at least, if you really enjoy, meat and chicken and that sort of thing, just do your best to have a meatless Monday, or at least 1 or 2 days a week where you go vegetarian. And we do have vegetarian options on our menu every day, so that's an option for you, and you can have it made to order as well, especially with our organic garden and that.
Yeah. All you have to do is eat lots of beans. They have a lot of protein content
Right.
and compete with meat pretty well. In particular, you can try tofu, which is
Yes.
made from soybeans. Very nutritious, high in protein.
Doesn't taste like much, but it takes on the flavor of what you're
Doesn't taste
eating.
like anything.
Yeah.
But it's great in stir fries. You cut it
Right.
in small cubes and fry it with rice and onions and peppers. So it's not too bad. I found a recipe involving tofu with peanut butter. It turned out to be really very tasty.
It sounds good. I love peanut butter. Yeah.
And then I just recently, in the last couple of years or so, I discovered tempeh, which is another type of soy-based meat substitute, which is really delicious. Tofu has no taste at all, but tempeh is very good. So I've been using that sporadically now for vegetarian meals.
Right. Lots of options. I know my daughter's a vegetarian, has been for quite a while, and we had brats the other night. We had the real Johnsonville, but she had her more than meat brat, and I took a taste. It was delicious, and it was completely plant-based. So there's just a lot of options out there for following a vegetarian diet, or at least incorporating that into your routine a little bit more. Yeah. What else? Anything else we want to talk about or touch on? I think, here at the Catholic home, every little thing you do can make a difference. We talked about always bringing your mugs to our meetings instead of using the styrofoam. This is kind of during this unprecedented time, I feel like it's become less of a priority, and that's okay. We all understand that, but you can still do things in a very eco-conscious manner. And I don't know, Gil, if there's things you do every day, you probably don't even think about it anymore, but that you can think of that we haven't touched on yet in regards to that.
Oh, I don't know.
When we're getting to the time where, in fact, we can use our planters outside, our raised garden beds, and we have plots. I'm not sure what the actual number is, but for those of you who like to garden and plant, you can start letting us know if you would like a plot. And I know we've promoted planting native plants, and certainly you're not going to plant a tree or necessarily a shrub, but the butterfly-friendly gardens and that sort of thing is something you could do in your plot.
The only problem there is that most of these environmentally friendly plants are perennials.
Perennials, yeah.
And you can plant the perennials.
You can plant perennials, yep.
But they won't really bloom the first year. I planted some perennials last year and hope they bloom this year.
Yeah.
So some of the garden plants, some of the annual garden plants that you get at the plant stores are very good for the environment too. One thing that we don't have very much around here is coneflowers. And coneflowers grow pretty rapidly. They're pretty.
And they spread pretty, don't they too?
Yes,
yeah.
They spread and they look nice.
Yeah, they are pretty. I love the coneflower. Yeah.
Others that.
Sunflowers?
Sunflowers, sure. Sunflowers are annuals. So they can grow pretty well. And sunflowers are natives. Some of them are natives, not all of them. The big sunflowers that we see in gardens are Russian sunflowers, so we can still plant them. They're composite flowers, so they have seeds right in the middle, so lots of seeds that various insects can get to them.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else? Anything else that you want to mention or talk about? Or Gil is a great resource. I'm thinking right now as we enter into the planting season and the gardening season, we're kind of on the early end of that, but maybe you would be kind enough to come up with a list of some plants that might be good to include, and we could provide that, have that available for everyone as a resource.
You could probably do that.
Yeah. I'm giving him homework.
Yeah, right. Well, I've got a list of plants that I planted in the rain gardens, and various other lists of plants. We're trying to put together a pollinator garden in Estabrook Park, but lately we've been booted out of there. They're not allowing us to work during the coronavirus.
Sure,
So,
yeah. We were scheduled to go as staff, I think last Saturday was the River Keepers cleanup. And obviously that didn't happen because so many people show up for those days. And I think you would promote Earth Day being every day, really. Kind of maybe more of the rookies show up on that day, but it's good awareness and it's good community building, and you can get a lot done with a lot of people at one time. So,
in fact, if you go to the River Keeper Earth Day programs, which I've done in the last couple of years, they give away T-shirts.
Oh.
And I happen to be wearing one right now.
Wonderful. I love it. That's great. Sporting the spirit. Good. Anything else you're thinking about? While you're thinking, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about these sunflowers, which was such a generous gift from the Stolen Works, who I'll just read their message to you. We hope that you will enjoy receiving this sunflower kindness package. Several of our children wanted to offer support and smiles to our community and involve all of us in making Milwaukee Catholic Home a sunshine center during this time of challenge. Follow the simple planting instructions found on the side of the bag, place it on your windowsill, and enjoy spreading the sun and smiles. Thank you so much, Jim and Alice, and to your family for giving these to us. That's such a fun idea, and great for the earth, great way to spread happiness. Gil, you will certainly be receiving one of these today, just to say thank you so much for sharing your time and knowledge. And then for those of you who are our gardeners, who like to get out there and dig in the earth, or maybe not, what we're going to do is, if you are interested in one of these sunflower packages, give Julie a call and we'll make sure you get one. It will be on a first come, first served basis, so I think there's close to 12 or even more here. So for our gardeners and for those who would just be interested in planting one of these and putting it in your window, give Julie a call and we will get it to you. All right, Gil, thank you so much. Happy Earth Day. Everyone, any other closing thoughts or comments?
Yeah, I'd like to plant one of those things myself.
Good.
In fact, well, let me tell you that Pat Lang and I have planted milkweed in our gardens. And milkweed are very important for monarch butterflies.
Yes.
So hopefully, if they mature, we might attract monarch butterflies.
That would be wonderful. Speaking of that, I feel like there was a resurgence last summer. I saw many. Yes.
Because so many people have planted milkweed, and a lot of people have even raised monarch butterflies.
Right.
And I guess they're imprinted with the need to migrate to the areas they come from, so it's probably not going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a lot last summer.
Yeah, that story is a wonderful. I think Pat and then Cynthia Summers also shared the story of the monarch butterfly and the migration and how that entire process, which is fascinating. Yeah. Wonderful. All right, everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you very much, Gil, for doing this. You are wonderful. So